situation in my family was just really not healthy. So I made a decision to go out to the East Coast to be a nanny. And I think that's where life changed. I found out what life was like outside of the borders of South Dakota. And I happened because I was very vulnerable at the time. And those vulnerabilities followed me to the East Coast. And actually, I went out there and I did have a boyfriend. And I thought, oh, this man really loves me. And come to find out, I was pregnant. I called back home to ask if I could come back home, but my father, who has passed away, had said no, that I was a disgrace. I was a disgrace to my family, to the city. I just couldn't come back because I was unwed. And then also I turned to my boyfriend at the time and I told him the situation and he said, "Well, if you want to stay with me, you can have an abortion because I have other girlfriends also." And then I also ran across a new group of friends who I thought were so nice and so amazing and were kind to me and accepted me. And I told them my situation. And they said, "Well, why don't you come here? Because obviously your family doesn't care about you. Obviously your boyfriend doesn't care about you. We care about you." Well, there's my first vulnerability to say, now I'm vulnerable, and now there's my bond has formed with this new group of friends that I did not know well. But they loved me and they cared about me and they accepted me. So that was probably the starting point of how I was starting to be groomed and manipulated into being sex and labor trafficked. So this group would have been under the cartel out of Colombia, South America. Slowly it progressed into domestic violence. So I would get hit and say, this isn't really right that somebody just hit me. I knew it wasn't right, but where was I to go? And I think the first time I was beaten pretty bad, and then he came to me with this new boyfriend and this new group of friends who would eventually become my husband, had said, "I'm so sorry I did that. I'll never do it again. I'll get help." And then they kind of love bomb you to say, "Well, buy a new apartment or buy a new house or car or whatever it is to make you feel special and loved." It was surviving every day, not knowing where to go, and not even understand inside of me that I was being trafficked, because that word was not used. So what happened to me over 25 years ago, I was never identified as a victim of sex or labor trafficking because nobody talked about it. And I did marry that guy at the time. We did have a child together. There was a moment, I believe, when my son was born that I wanted to go. I wanted to get out. But how was I going to get out? I had called all around to say I was a US citizen and I just had a child and I wanted to go home. They said, "Yes, of course. You're a US citizen. Your son will be a US citizen, no problem." But that wasn't the case. So when I had my son and I wanted to go, you needed a birth certificate in order to leave the country to get a passport. So I asked for the birth certificate and I wasn't going to get it. So instead, they said, "You can't leave." And I'm like, I do want to go. I said, "No, you're actually going to go to the United States and you're going to sign for a shipment of drugs in your name." So when I said I wanted to go, this group said no. So one night, some people in this group came to me with my ex, and they said, "No, you're going to fly to JFK Airport, and we're going to take your son." So when my son was 2 months old, he was taken, he was kidnapped. I guess I really didn't think about things at the time because I wanted my son. I wanted to leave. This was a way for me to get out. I didn't think of the repercussions. I didn't think of anything but my son and I. So I flew to JFK Airport. I went to a house, and then, of course, at the house, when they brought this shipment of furniture that was in my name, I had to sign a piece of paper, I guess. And actually, it was DEA that was there. So they did arrest me. And with that, I only remember really saying, my son, because my life is about my son, because I don't even understand what's happening to me. I did go through a big process on that, so it took about 24 months, and I was sentenced to 24 months. I did plead guilty. I pled guilty because I had a son that was in another country. I knew to keep my mouth quiet. I knew to accept whatever happened, but I still didn't understand what happened. I did come home after 24 months. That's kind of a long journey, and who helped me in my journey, who got me home. But then also after the 24 months, we did get my son home. When he came home, that was really where a lot of my journey started too. I had a new chapter in my life. I was a mom. I was out. I was out of the game, out of the life. I don't like that, but that word. But I wasn't always safe. People think, "Oh, you're home now. You're physically home, so you're good." And that isn't the truth. The truth is the journey really starts because you have to deal with yourself. You have to deal with your hopelessness, helplessness, physical, your reactions to things, your behaviors, and what you went through, and you need help. So I think sometimes we cry out for help, but if our cries aren't heard, like I think over 25 years ago, mine were not, we get lost when we're humans, right? And we matter in life too. But I didn't know I mattered. I was surviving day to day, trying to hold a job down, trying to make it through life, trying to be a parent when I'd never known even how to parent. But I have a very supportive family, and I am grateful and blessed that they walked alongside me, not always understanding because our loved ones don't always understand what we go through and how sex and labor trafficking really affects the family, loved ones, and that everyone kind of needs help in it. So I walked the journey alone for over 25 years. It wasn't until I met Call to Freedom. And I tell everybody, amen. I am so, so grateful for all that Call to Freedom does. They are the example of how the services, walking alongside and saying that each person that walks through those doors matters.